This is the second lecture on ethos, pathos, and logos. This section will focus on examples and will give you an opportunity to practice what we learned in the last lecture. So what's going to happen is I'm going to show you a slide of either ethos, pathos, or logos being used, and you need to come up with what the predominant strategy is. So it's going to be on you to pause the video, read it slowly, think a little bit about it, and then press play to see what the answer is and hear my explanation as to why. So our first one is children are dying and starving every day. Please donate now. You can pause it now. Okay. Pathos is being used here predominantly. It's trying to evoke your emotions, trying to elicit your empathy. Everyone should be required to wear helmets when riding bikes. Last year, 7,000 lives were saved because of helmets being worn. That's predominantly using logos because it uses a statistic, the 7,000 lives part, to make a claim about likelihood. And I can see why you might think it would be pathos also because it talks about lives being saved, and lives being saved are an emotional issue. However, just because an emotional topic is being discussed doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way that the speaker is trying to convince you. Here they're trying to convince you using statistics, not necessarily emotion. You should come to the party tonight. It will be tons of fun. It will be tons fun. We'll have a blast. They're using pathos to try and excite you. They are trying to get you to anticipate the fun that you're about to have later on. If you thought that this might have been like ethos, I can see why, because sometimes things that are cool or where you maybe feel peer pressure have an ethos equality about it, and that's true. However, the way that the speaker here is trying to excite you to go is by thinking about all the fun that you're going to have. If there was a line in there about um, how everybody was doing it, then that would be more ethos. Or, oh, it'll make you cool, then that might be ethos. Everyone should be required to wear safety belts. The worst moment of my life was when my friend died because she thought wearing a seatbelt wasn't cool. It's trying to evoke your emotions. The worst moment of my life part. I felt this terrible emotion. You don't want to feel this terrible emotion. It's almost sort of threatening you. We shouldn't go see a movie this weekend. According to famous critic Roger Ebert, all the movies out this weekend are pointless and a waste of time. It wants us to trust the expert Roger Ebert. So it's using ethos. If we are going to require more of our schools, we should also give more money to them. Many schools are doing the best they can with their funds. To improve the quality of education, we should improve funding. So this is logos because it's trying to convince you through reasoning. It starts off by saying, if we are going to require more of our schools, then we should also give more money to them. And so this sort of if-then format, and just the fact that there are a few steps involved, and it took you probably a little longer to process it, are all indicators that it's using reasoning, it's using logos. Having a gun should be a right because it is in the Constitution of the United States. Ethos. It's appealing to your trust in the Constitution or the Founding Fathers or the American values, perhaps. But either way, it's sort of it's evoking to a communally held ideal, the ethos. Multivitamins are an essential part of good health. According to the American Medical Association, most people don't get the required amount of vitamins and minerals in their regular diet. This is using ethos. It's asking you to trust an organization, the American Medical Association. Yoga is a fantastic activity. The combination of physical exercise and Zen-like meditation can refresh you completely and make the biggest problem seem small. It's trying to excite you. It's a fantastic activity, Zen-like meditation, all that good stuff. It'll refresh you. I bought Firestone tires because they are the most popular tires in America. It's hoping that you'll trust the masses here. Ethos. If it's everybody's doing it, it must be a pretty good idea. I wasn't going to watch that movie, but when I saw that it won an Oscar, I decided to see it. Ethos. It's hoping you'll trust the academy that chooses the awards. That's how this person's being convinced. Studies show that students do 30% better on tests when they sleep well. So we should have students start class later. This is using logos mostly because it's using facts and reasoning. However, ethos is also being used because it's hoping you'll trust the studies. Um, the first part, is discussing the 30% study, and so that would be more ethosy. It wants you to trust that study. But just like we talked about in the last presentation, sometimes one of our premises will be based on ethos or pathos, but it's the overall structure of the argument that makes this logos. We have this study, and if we have this study, then this should be our conclusion. Um, and so it's using logos and reasoning. Having a gun should be a right because we need to be able to defend ourselves. Without a gun, a criminal can take advantage of me. This one's a little fuzzier. It's still logos, I would say, because it is trying to make an argument based on fact. Um, we need to defend ourselves, and that's why it should be a right. I'm unable to defend myself without a gun. That's the essential structure of the argument. And therefore it appeals to reasoning and logos. However, you might think, but the language here can take advantage of me. That's emotionally potent language. That's heavy language. That's trying to evoke an emotion in me. And so I would agree with you there that that aspect also appeals to pathos. And this just reinforces what I talked about last time, in that oftentimes it is going to be a mix in practice when people are trying to convince you. And oftentimes the best uh, arguers, the best rhetoricians, are ones who are able to use ethos, pathos, and logos all of it at the same time to convince you in a multitude of ways. All right, we're on to lecture 3.